Welcome to the first edition of Draft Countdown 101. My guest tonight, Pete Smith, is going to join us, and we're going to talk about the AFC North coming up next. Hello, everyone, and welcome now to, like I said, the first edition. And Pete, you staff writer for the Orange and Brown Report, as well as various other things, but you are my go-to man for all things Browns. But tonight we're going to talk all things AFC North, because I think we can both agree this is probably the toughest division in the NFL, right?
Should be. Based on what we saw last year, all four teams finished with winning records, despite chaos, quarterback injuries, everything else. So just looking at it from this standpoint, if all four teams enjoy healthy quarterback play, I mean, obviously the Steelers are looking for better quarterback play. The Browns, consistent quarterback play from the guy they obtained. And then obviously Joe Burrow. All those teams will try to convince themselves that they should win the division this year.
I agree. I 100% agree. Quarterback play is going to be the biggest key. But let's get started with the team. If I had to guess here, the team I think we both feel will finish last in the division this year, and that's our favorite team, the Pittsburgh Steelers, right?
Maybe. I certainly understand the argument. I just have real questions about your Bengals. But anyway, we can start with the Steelers. That's fine. Obviously, look, quarterback is a huge deal for them. You have Justin Fields and Russell Wilson. Both guys are on one-year contracts. There's nothing tethering to them to either beyond this season or beyond this week. It would be easy to fast forward into the 2025 draft and go, hey, are they going to take Shedeur Sanders or somebody else? But at least for the moment, the Steelers have given themselves a lot of options. But beyond that, like the thing where you look at the Steelers, and we shall see, obviously, the endless back and forth on Brandon Ayuk and everything else. With the hire of Arthur Smith, I would imagine that Pat Freiermuth is going to be far more involved than he was previously. You've got George Pickens, but like you do look at this offense and you go, what's it going to look like on 3rd and 10? Do they have the ability to get out of those situations where they're behind the sticks and things like that? I love what they've done with the offensive line. But the combination of getting all these very young linemen who are very good run blockers, you are going to then but you're going to have a second-year guy, Broderick Jones, who's currently repping both left and right. He may end up on the left side. Their rookie, Tony Fatnu, might end up on the right side. They've got rookie Zach Frazier. And I don't know how settled they are at right guard, where they got another rookie and Mason McCormick, who is competing for that spot. You add all these guys, and if it works, you're sitting there. Those Steelers are in great shape for several years on the offensive line. The hitch, though, is the Steelers, who had traditionally had quarterbacks who got rid of the ball super quickly, some of the fastest in the league, they literally got the two guys with the longest time to throw of anyone in the league with Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. And I don't want to say that Tony Fatnu is a bad player based on getting beat by Danielle Hunter in the preseason game, the first one ever. But it does sort of lead you to wonder, they may be really good run blocking initially, but they may have real issues pass protecting. And they're young players. They're playing in the AFC North, where everybody's got good pass rushers. They're going to have to figure out ways to come up with to deal with Myles Garrett, Trey Hendrickson, Zadarius Smith, Odafe Owe twice a year beyond the rest of their schedule. And if you look at the Steelers, I know this is a big thing for them. They're looking at the back half of that schedule, as everybody is, and it's brutal. So there's a lot of things working against them. I think they've done a great job addressing defense. There are still questions at corner, but they've really strengthened up everything else. Patrick Queen, big get for them. Is this a situation where, the Baltimore Ravens had acquired Roquan Smith and Patrick Queen took off? How much of that was because Roquan Smith sort of allowed Patrick Queen to play in a role that he's comfortable in, versus how much of that is Roquan Smith is really good and makes everybody better, and Patrick Queen sort of got at least somewhat of a bump in that spot. So I think the Steelers have done a really good job building for their future. I just don't know if they've done a great job necessarily building for their present. Now, if suddenly Brandon Ayuk is in the mix and you've got a very good receiver to sort of, be that true number one for them, and you potentially still have Pickett or George Pickens, and you have Pat Freiermuth, all of a sudden you can talk yourself into the Steelers being pretty good. But again, it comes back to the quarterback and it comes back to that offensive line.
Yeah, their offensive line is definitely going to get baptized by fire quickly this season. But I'm like you. I thought the Steelers hit a home run in this draft with those 3 offensive linemen that you mentioned. I like Roman Wilson in the 3rd round. I like Peyton Wilson in the 3rd round. I think he feels like if he's healthy, he could be a tremendous linebacker for the Steelers going forward. But they've got to hit those guys right out of the gate. And like you said, that it feels like their final record maybe settle in on if they get this Ayuk trade done or not, or if he stays in San Francisco, because it doesn't look like Cleveland's going to be in the mix there, right? So that seems like that's over.
Yeah, that could change their dynamic significantly. But the questions they have are real. Defensive line wise, is Cam Hayward going to be great at 35? His condition, the way he takes care of his body, I would not be surprised if he comes back and is once again sort of a top of the line player. Keanu Benton was sensational as a rookie. They've got a lot of things going for them. TJ Watt, obviously a great player. They've got 3 talented edge rushers with the kid they drafted last year, who has, if nothing else, is just explosive off the edge. And he's going to make his share of plays just by being that fast and doing some of those things. So there's a lot going with it. That obviously they missed Minkah Fitzpatrick for a significant stretch last year. So, as I said, it's going to be tough for them. But the Mike Tomlin effect is a real one. They don't tend to go. They haven't gone below 500. They play close. They may have done enough to sort of. I mean, obviously, from their standpoint, they always want to be a team that plays to the last, gives themselves a shot until the last drive, which is what they did last year. But last year, with the quarterback situation they had, they couldn't convert those into wins. I personally, I have more belief in Russell Wilson than most people do, just because he just has to be adequate. He doesn't have to be great for them to be effective. He just has to be smart, protect the football, and sort of take what's there. And I think he could do that. Now, Justin Fields adds an extra dynamic. And I know Steelers fans really want it to be Justin Fields because they hope somehow, some way that the unrealized potential can sort of be manifested into a way that's going to be consistent, warranted extension. And then the other part of that is Arthur Smith. Even watching a preseason game, the offense is night and day. It looks logical. It looks like they have a sense of what they're doing. And you couldn't say that last year with Matt Canada. And obviously that has been a thing for them for last several years. They refused to fire him. They let him play out his, coach out his contract. So they should get a big bump. Arthur Smith, to me, is a hand in glove fit for what the Steelers want to be. Power football, run it, play action, set up some shots downfield, but just protect the football, let their defense keep them in games, and they can do that. So the Steelers, just by their nature, always give themselves a puncher's chance in every football game.
Now to the team that, are they a favorite? I don't know, but the Baltimore Ravens, Lamar Jackson, the Ravens have been beat up a lot here lately, but you bring in Derrick Henry this year, which just feels like a good fit for this team. Maybe he is, maybe he's not. But what are your thoughts on the Ravens, and do they continue their success of recent years?
So the Ravens, where they are good, they are exceptional. So quarterback, they are great. Running back, they have a ton of talent. We've got to see when Keaton Mitchell is going to be like full go to really sort of give them that. It's like jumbo thunder and incredibly quick lightning. They've got phenomenal, the spine of their defense is terrific. Their defensive tackles, Roquan Smith, having Kyle Hamilton and Marcus Williams at safety, it just sets them up for a ton of success. The problem is where they are weak. they have real questions, and that starts with edge. Odafe Owe is a good player. He just hasn't proven to be a great player. And unless they have a great player, they're kind of hurting. David Ajabo has obviously, he came into the NFL coming off an Achilles injury. Then he had a partial tear to the ACL last year. I think he's about ready to start practicing, but you have no idea what Ajabo is going to give you. They kept Kyle Van Noy. How long is he? And he was good for them last year. How long is that going to last? Jadeveon Clowney had a big impact for them. He is gone. So that is a major question. Are they going to be able to get enough out of the edge position? Corner, Marlon Humphrey, good player. They obviously draft the kid out of Clemson, Nate Wiggins, looks very talented, currently hurt. And the Ravens have just been drafting corner with these mid-round picks. Brandon Stevens is sort of in that mix. They've got all these guys. Can they cobble together enough guys to sort of cover? Because here again, the Bengals, they have to deal with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. And if it's Jermaine Burton, if it's Josephus, if it's, the Bengals have all these guys, the Browns, Amari Cooper, Jerry Jeudy, Elijah Moore, they've got a lot of weapons. That may be problematic for them. They've got to prove that they can do that. Between corners and pass rush, are they going to have enough? And then the biggest part on the defensive side of the ball is the potential for brain drain. They didn't just lose Mike McDonald. They lost the second guy who was going to be the defensive coordinator, and they lost the third guy who was going to be defensive coordinator, all took jobs elsewhere. So Zach Diassi, who is an internal guy, he's been there, but that's a lot of beyond like first, second, third. That's three people that have left the building that were good, very good coaches. And Mike McDonald got a lot out of that group last year. He certainly surpassed my expectations for what he could do for them. Offensively, the wide receivers, question mark. I think Rashad Bateman hasn't clicked yet. Zay Flowers, promising, but can he sort of be a real, a full service receiver? Because right now, obviously, it still goes Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely set the table for everybody else. Now, when you have those guys, you don't need your receivers to sort of be the all-world everything. Like Zay Flowers can be like what amounts to be a Z, sort of an undersized guy, catch the ball in space and make plays, and that worked really well for them. But, some of the matchups they face, particularly in the division, the Browns have very good corners. I will get there, but I feel I'm more bullish on the Bengals secondary than most people are. And then the Steelers, questions with corner with Dante Jackson coming in and Joey Porter Jr. trying to carry it over. After that, it gets a little bit shaky. But do the Steelers have the capacity to take advantage of that? Now, the other big question for the Ravens is offensive line. They're replacing 3 starters. And yes, they have some guys they like internally that they had in the system. Andrew Voorhees, I think, is somebody they really like. Tore his ACL at the combine and, still did the bench press even with a big boot on his leg. So, he was able to go through the whole process and he's healthy. I've seen people say he was a day 1 pick last year. I think that's a little rich. I think he was more in the day 2 range, but still, if he's healthy and he's the caliber of the player that people saw at USC before he got hurt, that's a big get for them. Who's going to play right guard? Is it going to be Daniel Falale, the former tackle that played in Minnesota? Is it going to be Ben Powers or whichever giant man is there that's 350 pounds or whatever he is? And then right tackle, Patrick McCarry could theoretically end up there. He's sort of their 5-tool, plays everything backup guy. They also drafted Roger Rosengarten. Is he going to be ready? But this becomes super important for them. The Ravens sort of responding to the criticism they got in the AFC Championship game where they didn't run the ball enough. Their sort of argument was that they didn't trust their line to get enough of a push. That is critical for Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry, who I believe can be great for them, but he needs to be able to get the wheels turning to go. The times he gets he gets sort of stuffed and stopped, or when people can get him before he really starts gaining momentum. So if you are now trying to replace 3 linemen, which doesn't even get to Ronnie Stanley's health, which has been a question, that's a lot to try to fix. And they needed to be good week 1. They can't wait for week 6 for this thing to sort of gel. So it's a lot of pressure. Now, if it works, it's great. You've got the MVP. Derrick Henry can open some things up for Lamar Jackson and vice versa. It puts a lot of stress on the defense, or you could try to load the box because then they can get out wide, throw to their very varied weapons, or vice versa, spread them out, and then just give it to the big guy and run up the middle. So the Ravens cause a lot of problems, but again, where they are great, they are phenomenal. They are top of the league at a lot of positions. Can the areas they are great cover up for the areas where they are limited? And then if you're a Bengals fan, you are sitting there with the same question about Lamar Jackson as everybody has for Joe Burrow. Can he stay healthy? He stayed healthy last year, and that sort of felt like the Ravens' great shot. This was the one. He's healthy. They're in the AFC Championship. Can he get there? He didn't. Is he going to be able to stay healthy the whole year this year? That becomes a major question mark. And it becomes a huge question mark right now, because do you know who their backup quarterback is right now?
It is Josh Johnson.
It is Josh Johnson. And then they got a couple of undrafted free agents, Devin Leary from Kentucky and the kid from Cincinnati, Emory Jones, who I don't know how many colleges he ended up playing at before he ended up in Cincinnati, but like right to say, like even when Lamar Jackson was just sick, like that's a big deal for you if you don't have a viable backup quarterback. And I don't know if they have the answer for that. If they're going to have to make a move at some point to try to shore that up to get something, in case of situation where Lamar Jackson has to miss time. I mean, they may be hoping that the Browns release Tyler Huntley again and get him back. But I don't know if Tyler Huntley sort of fits the Todd Monken offense that they've been using. So they may be sort of looking out there trying to get somebody. But yeah, I mean, I don't think it's unfair to label the Ravens the favorite. They have obviously won it last year. And then, as you know, the last 5 years, I think 3 of the division titles were 2 for the Ravens, 2 for the Bengals, then one for the Steelers. So when you have that franchise quarterback, it obviously gives you that leg up to say, we believe we can win the division, and it's a very simple why, and just point to the reigning MVP.
Yeah, you mentioned them multiple times now, so let's move on to the Cincinnati Bengals. Obviously, where my fandom resides, but I'll try to be unbiased here a little bit. But with the Bengals, it basically boils down to one thing: Joe Burrow's health, right? If Joe Burrow's healthy, this is a AFC Championship contending team, Super Bowl contending team, if you will. Despite any other weaknesses they may have, if he's at the top of his game, the Bengals are going to be right at the top of the AFC when it's all said and done. But he has not stayed healthy. I mean, at this point, this is his first training camp, I believe, he's ever gone through as an NFL quarterback, because his rookie year was the COVID year. So he didn't really get to experience a training camp then. That the preseason game last Saturday was the first time he ever took a snap in a preseason game. So we'll see. But their offensive line right now on paper looks better than it did. Cordell Volson looks like he's playing okay. Karras and Kappa fine. Amarius Mims pec injury, the rookie they drafted, but so now you have to hope Trent Brown can stay healthy enough on that right side until Mims is ready to go. But what are your thoughts on the Bengals as a AFC Championship or Super Bowl contender?
So I like what they have done offensively in getting Amarius Mims. He looks very talented, could be very good. Can he stay on the field? To be determined. But the move I like that they did was getting Trent Brown. They've got 3 of the biggest human beings on the planet that can operate a tackle. And 2 of them may or may not stay healthy, which is pretty smart to get both of them in Brown and Mims. But my first question with the Bengals is the offensive line the Bengals had last year played every single snap, and Joe Burrow still ended up out for the season, and that's problematic. The other problem I have with the offensive line is Cordell Volson. Now, if you're the Bengals, you're sitting there going, "This is year 3 or 4 for him." 3, I believe 3. You are hoping that this is the year that he takes that big step, because to this point, there have been games where he's downright horrendous at left guard, and it's a quick path to the quarterback if he is problematic, if he's a problem. And combine that with the fact that when I say that the offensive line has stayed healthy, they played every snap last year. Some of that is just how Joe Burrow plays. He tends to hold on to the ball. He tends to want to extend and try to make plays, and that just puts him in position. So certainly if Amarius Mims is all they hope he can be, that's a huge get, but it does raise some questions. The other problem I have, or question I have for the Bengals, are they actually going to be able to run the ball? Joe Mixon was good. Can this group move people off the line of scrimmage, and can the backs that they've brought in do the job? And can Chase Brown, it is Chase Brown, right? That's the one you guys have. If he can take, like, he's obvious, like I'm sure you guys coming off of last season, the Bengals sitting there going, we are really excited about what this kid can do. Super speed, good size, all these things. How much can he take a larger role in the offense? Because I think they would like to have him take as many other reps away from the sort of their pass protecting back as possible, and allow Chase Brown to take a bigger portion of those. Are they going to be able to run the ball with the guy they brought in to replace Mixon? Those are real questions. But my bigger issue is defensively. When the DJ Reader went down for the season, the Bengals defense completely crumpled, and they did not replace DJ Reader. Now, they drafted Chris Jenkins. They drafted the kid from Mississippi State, I believe, in the 3rd round. And you're sitting there hoping that these guys can sort of do the job. But if you don't account those rookies, your starting nose is Jay Tufele at this point. Like, it is not a good situation. And your linebackers completely disappeared. The defensive line obviously was no good. And they went from one of the better run defenses in the league to basically 32nd in a number of areas of efficiency. So that is a huge problem. If they can't get off the field, or they can sort of limit the amount of opportunities Joe Burrow has to sort of take them back or drive down the field. If you can limit Joe Burrow to like 6 possessions or something like that, that's really difficult. Or late game, 4-minute drive, can the Bengals get off the field? But like I said, I know a lot of people have questions about their secondary. I actually really like the way they handled it. One, I like Geno Stone for what they need him for, which is coverage. Von Bell can sort of, he goes home to a place where he was successful. At the very least, he should be able to contribute on rundowns. So you've got 3 guys who can, with the dude from the guys you got out of Alabama,
Jordan Battle,
who was phenomenal as a rookie. Now you've got to see if he can carry it over. But if he can, like, obviously Kyle Hamilton and some of these other young safeties are like, everybody wants to talk about them. But Jordan Battle, based on what he did as a rookie, if you're a Bengal fan, you're going, why are you not talking about our guy? Because he was a huge deal for the Bengals. So you've got 3 guys at safety, and then you look at corner. Cam Taylor-Britt is ascending, I would say. Very, very good corner. They lose Chido Awuzie, but they had drafted DJ Turner. And then they seem to be playing Dax Hill at corner. So you've got, at the very least, 3 guys who can contribute at just boundary corner. If Hill needs to, he can easily jump into the slot. You still have Mike Hilton from last year. So overall, if you're the Bengals, you're sitting there going, we have 5 DBs we're comfortable putting on the field. Or I should say 7 DBs. 7 DBs we're comfortable on the field at any given point. Like, that's a really good situation. I think it will be fine. I think the Bengals will be in reasonably good shape in passing situations. Trey Hendrickson is phenomenal. He just happens to play in the division with TJ Watt and Myles Garrett. But can Miles Murphy take a big step forward? They need him to. Sam Hubbard, I believe, is injured at the moment, but they've got Joseph Osai, who has had glimpses but hasn't been able to stay healthy. So getting Sheldon Rankins is a pass rushing move. It is not a run stopping move. Those are ways that if the Bengals can get into third and obviously passing situation, they have reason to feel they can be pretty good. But like, it's hard not to look at this defense with just how big of a deal DJ Reader was for them and not be like, are we going to be okay this year? And they've got a tremendous defensive coordinator, Lou Anarumo. So you've got a lot of reasons to feel good about him, but this is sort of like an ownership issue. Does he have enough to work with? Do they have the necessary pieces to sort of make this work? Or are we sort of waiting for next year when maybe Chris Jenkins and other dude are more ready to contribute? Like, it's a big ask. You're asking Chris Jenkins to be good right now. And that's not easy to do at that position, in that role. So like, these are questions I have. I'm less concerned about losing Brian Callahan. I think the guy they have in there will be fine. Pitcher or Pinter or whatever his name is. You still obviously have Zach Taylor. That part of it is okay, but that's where I sort of wonder. I understand, for all the reasons I just said, having Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson has basically made it almost a coin flip as to who's going to win the division. But I do wonder if they have enough of the other pieces in place that Joe Burrow is going to be able to Joe Burrow his way into a division title, or are we going to be sitting looking at this sort of the second half of the season going, their defense just does not have enough? God forbid that like Chris Jenkins gets hurt or something like that. They just don't have the pieces, in my view, and there's still time. Can they get enough to stop the run? Like, you're going to look at the Ravens. Are they going to be able to stop Derrick Henry with what they have? Huge question mark. The Steelers are going to run the football. Do they have enough to stop Najee Harris and Jalen Warren? We don't know when Nick Chubb will be back, but he will be back at some point. And I don't think the Browns play the Bengals until the second half of the season. So they have to be able to deal with that. Like, that's just the division. And that's a big ask for these guys to be ready for that. And I don't know if they're going to be able to sort of make it through that.
I would not be surprised if they don't actively call Tier Tart's agent, like now that he got released, I think today or yesterday from Miami. I know they were in on him multiple times they were in on him in the offseason. They tried to claim him last year when he was released. And I think he'd be a decent role player for them. But yeah, I think if and it's a big if, but if Chris Jenkins and McKinley Jackson can get acclimated quickly and you see improvements from Miles Murphy and Joseph Osai, let's say this is shit or get off the pot for this guy this year, right? I mean, he's got to have it this year or they're probably going to cut bait at some point. But those are their defense. If they can take those steps, I think that goes a long way to whether we see the Bengals in Lombardi contention or not.
If Miles Murphy's good, it would help the Bengals immensely. He's a gigantic human being. I think people forget he's basically 6'5", 270.
Yeah,
like that would help them with him and Hendrickson basically able to seal the edges and rush the passer. That would be enormous. Now, is he ready for that big of a step up? I don't know the answer to that, but like that is a guy that could do so much for them. Obviously last year, a lot of people were wondering why aren't the Bengals addressing more of an immediate need? They bet on talent. They bet on a year in a system, and now suddenly they need him to be good. So if it works out, it's going to look very prudent from their part, planning ahead as they did with DJ Turner. They need those guys to sort of be ready to go. And that's unfortunately life with the Bengals, that like because of how they have to operate, they need rookies to be able to step in and play, or second-year guys in this case.
All right, so let's move on to your team, the Cleveland Browns. And I think 1-45, when healthy, this might be one of the, if not the best roster in the NFL. When healthy, but it boils down to them. Same way we've talked about Lamar Jackson. being the catalyst for the Ravens. We've talked about Joe Burrow being the catalyst for the Bengals. We've got to see improvement from Deshaun Watson this year, or it's just not going to work out for him in Cleveland, right? And you don't know how you're going to not have Nick, be without Nick Chubb in the run game, but the defense is just fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, they need their offensive line to be healthy, for one. They're still waiting on their tackles to get healthy now. Seemingly, the Browns are approaching like they know when this is going to happen. They've slow played some other things, but that's huge. But as far as Deshaun Watson goes, I think a large part of it is he's just got to stay on the field. Whether or not he's able to get to a level that we're going to talk about, oh, that's the old Deshaun, whatever level he can get to, it's not going to matter if he's in and out of the lineup like he was last year. Seemingly, the second he started to get better, he had a setback of some sort, injury, and then ultimately out for the season. So, yes, so much of this relies on Deshaun Watson. The Browns have done everything they can to give him as much help as possible. Certainly, the team is eagerly anticipating Nick Chubb's return. But beyond that, Jerome Ford last year was not great, but he got better over the course of the year. But the problem is the line got worse. So you sort of got this weird mix of mediocre with the occasional explosive plays. But like the move that I think they made that was really prudent for what they need right now is Deontay Foreman, no nonsense power back, knows exactly what you're going to get from him. An upgrade over Kareem Hunt, who was playing through a torn abductor last year, which is unfathomable to me. So that's the running part. They got Nyheim Hines, haven't had him back yet. He's still on the PUP list as a sort of space player and a weapon, both on special teams and in the offense. They could do some things for them. But receiver-wise, Amari Cooper coming off arguably the best season of his career, and he caught balls from 4 different quarterbacks. They get Jerry Jeudy. I know a lot of people are not excited about Jerry Jeudy outside of Cleveland. They are very excited, and I think that the role they have for him, they feel like it's going to be helpful for him, not only because they still have Amari Cooper, but they have David Njoku. So realistically, Jerry Jeudy is your third option, which could be great for him. Now the Browns, with the trade was obviously very cheap. The extension, they are betting that he's going to take this next step. That his prime is these are his prime years, and he's going to sort of become that next guy. But even if he was to get 900 yards efficiently and like 6 or 7 touchdowns with everything else they have, they would be in good shape. Elijah Moore, up and down season, even though he had a career high in receiving yards last year. But along with Jerry Jeudy and the ability to play as many receivers as they are, bringing in Ken Dorsey and sort of spreading things out, they can cause some mismatches in that. The Browns feel positive about Cedric Tillman coming into his second year. And then obviously David Njoku is a huge piece of this. Really broke out last year and just confidence through the roof, showed off his power, everything else. So having a player like Njoku, having a true number one or as close as you're going to get without being sort of an elite guy in Amari Cooper, that sets them up really well on that side. So yeah, at that point, it comes down to Deshaun Watson has to be effective, able to, at the very least, put this, even if he's not sort of the upper echelon quarterback that they sort of envisioned when they got him, they need him to be good, and they need him to really hit whatever gear he's going to be able to hit for the last 7 games of the season when it gets real divisional games, Dolphins, Chiefs, a number of these teams in what would be the playoff push. They need him to be great. Defensively, they return a lot of guys on that side of the ball. Defensive line still stout. They have not only do they have the reigning defensive player of the year, Myles Garrett. They re-signed Zadarius Smith. They've got Obo Okoronkwo. They are also hoping to get more from Alex Wright, who's entering his 3rd year. They've got Isaiah McGuire entering his 2nd year, so they feel really good about the edge group. Corners, Greg Newsome, who knows how long he's going to be out. I suspect it's longer than the team wants to admit, but they still got Denzel Ward and Martin Emerson. Cameron Mitchell likely ends up being the next man up in the slot. They've got now, if Newsome is out for a while, they've got to sort of figure out some more depth. at that position, because now, Newsome was a luxury in some ways, in that if Denzel Ward or Martin Emerson was out, he could go back out to the boundary and bring in this case, Cam Mitchell, who was a rookie last year, into the slot, or somebody else. And then the Browns feel really good about their safeties. Juan Thornhill had sort of a nightmare season with injuries. They expect him to bounce back. Grant Delpit earned his first Pro Bowl trip before he suffered an injury. Rodney McLeod is back for his final season. And then they've got a guy in Ronnie Hickman, who was an undrafted free agent last year, who came in at the end of the season and had a pretty strong finish to the regular season. They're hoping he can sort of carry that over and sort of become a bigger role within their defense. So they've got a lot to feel good about on that side of the ball. But like everybody else, they've just got to get healthy and get it all on the field. So I like, to your point, from a pure roster standpoint, you have to feel good about, if you're the Browns, about your depth, talent in a lot of positions. But everybody's going to come back to the same thing. Can Deshaun Watson be that guy? And then can, the offensive line sort of reset itself? And Nick Chubb, what is he going to be when he comes back?
I don't know the answer to this, but has there been a team who every wide receiver that they have slated to start for them was acquired via trade? Or is this at least going back to the 80s, right?
It's definitely a unique perspective on the position. It's funny how little they gave up for all of them, but yeah, they're top three receivers. They obviously a fifth round pick and a pick swap for Amari Cooper, a 5th and 6th for Jerry Jeudy, and then trading down from their 2nd round pick to the 3rd round to get not only Elijah Moore, but they used the pick they got in the trade to then draft Cedric Tillman. So everything they've got in their sort of top 4 is via trade. And then they've got Jamari Thrash as a rookie, still David Bell, who's in his 3rd year. They've got, what they would like to believe is a stacked room. I know the NFL probably looks at the Browns and goes, they've got one guy. The Browns feel a little bit more stronger about their group than everybody else does. The Ayuk pursuit notwithstanding.
I think the Browns lead the league in number of players claimed after it cuts.
Yeah, I mean, they got. We'll see what happens with him this year. They claimed Khalif Halassi from the Kansas City Chiefs after they played the Kansas City Chiefs in the preseason. He is a press corner, sort of in a similar mold, just nowhere near as big as Martin Emerson. Started his career at Oregon, ended up at Western Kentucky, had some good tape. So he's an intriguing player. They carried him all of last season. Now they want to see it carry over into this season and see if that can produce something. But yeah, they've done. Obviously they certainly get a certain amount of criticism because of the draft picks they gave up for Deshaun Watson. They've been pretty creative in coming up with solutions through undrafted free agents or playing the margins like the waiver wire and finding some guys who'll be able to contribute, getting a guy like Ethan Posich off the street and being able to turn him into a productive center and then a contract extension that has sort of helped to sort of mitigate not having those draft picks, even though it is starting to, the average age of the team is increasing rapidly now because they haven't had those. And they need particularly this 2023 draft class to be successful. And right now it looks pretty good. If you're looking at DeJuan Jones, Cedric Tillman, if he is what they believed him to be, Isaiah McGuire, which seemed like a real nice value in the 4th round, Cameron Mitchell, who might be that slot corner for them this year, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, who looks good in the preseason once again. There's a lot there where they didn't have a pick until the 3rd round, but it feels like they got a lot of bang for their buck with those picks.
There you go. All right, so let's wrap it up here. Let's predict 1 through 4 how you think the AFC North is going to feel. And we'll start with 4. I said earlier, I think it's going to be Pittsburgh in the 4 spot. Where do you have?
I'll go with the Steelers. The end of their schedule is brutal, and just the amount of things that need to go right for them is going to be tough.
Third, I'm going to go with the Ravens myself.
I have to go with the Bengals here. Burrow could carry them and prove me dead wrong. He's done it before, but he's got to stay healthy. And that defense, I just don't know if they've got enough to stop the run or get off the field. And that could really kill them in games this year.
Second, I had your Browns.
So do I. And it comes down to they don't, unless Watson is going to elevate his game to a point where he's that franchise quarterback, I think that is going to stop them from reaching necessarily the highest of the highs. I think they'll still be a playoff team. I think they will still have a good defense. I think they will do a lot of things well, hopefully with less injuries than they had last year. And that's part of this. Is there a lot of people expect them to regress? If they can just be less injured than they were last year, they should at the very least be able to sustain.
And winning the division, I had obviously the Bengals. I think they're a 12-5 team, and I think that's enough to win this division this year.
So I've got the Ravens. Going into this, like I sort of did a position, like I ranked the positions within the division, and I went in thinking the Ravens were not going to be good. And I still have major questions about the brain drain and the offensive line, but they are top of the of the division in so many positions: safety, tight end, linebacker, defensive tackle. They are running back. They are just so good at so many key areas that I think they are going to be able to lean into their strengths to carry them that will allow to sort of make up for some of the other deficiencies. But this could be the year where the edge position becomes a major problem for them, or the cornerback position becomes a problem for them, or if they suffer injuries on the offensive line, it could end their season pretty quick, because at that point, then Lamar has to do everything. And his track record is when he's forced into that scenario, it can lead to him getting not even sort of injured enough to take him out of the out of games, though that has happened. But if it slows him down and makes him less special, then that leads to some problems for them.
There you go. So I had my predictions for the AFC North: Cincinnati first, Cleveland second, Baltimore third, Pittsburgh fourth. Pete has Baltimore first, Cleveland second, Cincinnati third, Pittsburgh fourth. So that's going to do it tonight for our AFC North preview here with Pete Smith of the Orange and Brown Report. Pete, thanks for coming on tonight. And for everybody watching, we'll have more interviews with others, great contributors like Pete, coming up all throughout the season. So stay tuned for that here on Draft Countdown 1-on-1s.